I have decided to make another video before I before going to sleep. I'm pretty tired, but all things considered, I haven't been getting too much sleep lately. And so today I have a topic, and well, the topic is simply conversations, I guess. I did some quote unquote research for this video, since I really do hope to, I don't know, do something better. Started with some videos, and I don't know, I think I for one have always struggled with talking, conversation, knowing how to talk just at all. And well, this is sort of my research to find out more and hopefully improve. It was awkward to say, even though this is just a video, and only talking to myself. So why am I finding it so awkward to just talk about the first video? It's okay. I watched a video, Master the Art of Conversation. I had a very specific title in my head. Why this title, I'm not particularly too sure. It just sounded eye-catching to me, but I can see it being not the correct way to write it. But basically just the art of talking to the wind. The art in a way that, I mean, I want to be able to keep a conversation going and actually know what to say, what to talk about, regardless of how long it's been, that kind of thing. The first video really focused on emotion. So you need emotion. You need to ask open-ended questions. How did it come for you to want to do that? I don't know. Like, that's the example talking about, I don't know, career. And just asking better questions instead of simply asking, where are you from? Which is a bad example for my specific case, but it's a general idea. You can, what was it like growing up there? Instead of what do you do? It's how did you get into that? Is it what you expected? You know, it makes sense. I can imagine these things. I don't know if in actual conversation I might think about it, but I get the general idea. And so I took actual notes on these videos, did quote unquote research. So I have a notebook under me where I wrote all these notes. And we got desire and change are emotional. And like the main point of the video being emotion is not boring. Which I feel like, that's fair. Nothing wrong against emotion. It makes sense. Like instead of what, or not instead of, but it makes sense to start with filler questions. What do you like to do for fun? Hiking? And then the response back needs to be something better. What's your favorite trial? And actually figure out why. You can let people decide how far they want to go. Overall, it's just an invitation to talk, right? I don't know if the video really helps. Doesn't help because most of these kind of things might be about just talking to someone new that you don't know. The next topic was about talk like a friend, even if, they're somebody new, which is a fair point. But moving along seemed like something interesting. Allowing things to move and talk about a range of different things. Actually ride the flow of the conversation. I liked their example of basically somebody asking a question in a list format and ultimately keep on interrupting the conversation in order to go back and get the actual facts straight, clearly answer what the list was, even though you could have ride the flow. Think of the conversation as a joyride and then just keep things moving instead of stopping things. Be important also to take note when things get reacted on. I don't particularly have any good examples. Facial cues. If you get something interesting, you know where you can or cannot dig deeper on. Just in general, the need to be more genuinely curious. stories is where I really enjoyed. Hearing about stories sounds like the ideal to me from this list of topics. Stories are concrete, and we can relive the emotion. Yeah, because it's not the information of the story that should matter, though. It's the story itself, the journey, and to be able to express what it was like and find the parts of it that might need filling in. That's the parts I should ask about. I can fill in and get the full picture. Of course, I'm saying the point of the video is that I'm trying to speak about this, so it'll ingrain in my head. I want to learn so that I can be a bit better at it. I won't say particularly for my own benefit, but I recognize that I do benefit from it as well. Not like I don't. And, you know, then it goes on to the conversation about listening. I think in general, I'm more of a listener overall, but I might not even be completely good on that part. But you have to communicate that you are engaged, that you fully understand what it is that they are saying. Knowing that they are getting through to you. I mentioned a couple things, some of which, normal things. Back channeling by saying, yeah, or wow, reacting to, what is being said, which, of course, also facial cues, like for nonverbal cues, responding with your head or matching their expression. Asking follow-up questions, which is always, the harder part, but it's the one I'm looking to be able to do more frequently at the very least. And that was barely the first page. I have 1, 2, 3, 4.5 pages of this. But that was all the first video had to do about it. The next, it referred to conversations in sort of like a category way. Like it's conversations die when they're only about objects. You say, what game do you like to play? I like to play Minecraft. And then where did it go from there? If you stop at the Minecraft, then it's dead. It explained that it should be in layers. You know, start with an object, then go. There's multiple ways that I heard it described, but at least the one in this case was an object, experience, emotion, and finally meaning. For example, what game do you like to play? Minecraft. You follow up with what got you into it. You might say, my friends played it, for example. Continue with, what type of player are you? Be more of a builder or an explorer? Could answer whatever. Ask, what's the biggest thing you built? A city? How long did it take? Like 3 months? Wow, do you enjoy building projects that take like long projects like that? I don't know, just examples of questions. And it's beneficial. I don't think it's covered the kind of parts that I'm looking for though. And I'd like to describe a recurring theme of conversation fuel sources. Like, what type of conversation type actually ignites the fire, I will say. And it divided it into 3 particular sections. How many? It's kind of late at night. I'm not 100% sure what I just said. But it's 5 categories. Basically, about people, places, passions, problems, and plans. I did like that each of those had a P, and I do not think that was intentional. I think that's just how it ended up. But it was not quoted on, so I'm just gonna say that was unintentional. It just worked out that way. And people generally enjoy conversations where they feel seen, heard, or understood. Kind of the thing I was looking for. And won't lie, it's probably fair. The next note, it stated most people are just looking for the next sentence. Yeah, I think I do that sometimes. I want to at least be able to say that I continued talking. So if you fully listen, but I don't know. I've tried. There's this Ford method it described. Ford being an acronym for family. There's a lot of lists, but family, occupation, recreation, and dreams as another kind of be kind of the right word, but potential way to form a conversation. Like, do you have siblings? Family. Or for occupation, what got you interested in that? For recreation, what do you usually do for fun? And for dreams, if you could wake up tomorrow, the new skill, what would it be? I like the last one, and I am genuinely curious how that would be answered. But and then I talked about the one that most wiggled my own brain as, major in computer science, being about threads. Threads as in graph structures. It made me think of computer science-y things. Just the concept that every conversation or the sentences within the conversations contains threads to different things. I went hiking with my brother last weekend. It contains, various threads like hiking, obviously, but also the brother, the weekend, nature, exercise. Any of those are technically valid. Ideally, what I have to try to be better on is to be able to be curious, ask, who is this person? In general, I would say for me, I am generally a quiet person, and it even notes here most quiet people believe I need to have something interesting to say, which is 100% true for me. If I, in like a general sense, I don't have something to, or like I don't feel like there's a reason to say something, I generally haven't, because I don't know, just how my brain initially works, and it's not true for all cases. But in a general sense, I'm not hitting up somebody random without at least, if I feel like there's a reason to it, which is what I interpret that portion from. But it can also be in the middle of a conversation where if I already started one, that's not as big of an issue. Then for actually talkative people, it knows it's more of, that's interesting. Please tell me more. Maybe my earlier note doesn't matter because obviously you're not saying that's interesting, tell me more in the event when you haven't already started talking. Maybe that's a bad example. Then a more of a topic that I'm looking for after talking with somebody for so long. How do you still know what to talk about? That's what I wanted to figure out. Because barely enough long-term conversation wouldn't be filled with novelty because there's not much novelty left to go. I mean, there will always be new things and things that change, but The facts are what remain the same, generally. But you stay interested because you keep finding new parts of the same part. You have to be fueled by continued curiosity, which is, I highlighted that word on my notes. That sounded fairly important. So, and just that, there was a bit of a back and forth because I then went back to notes on the Ford method. It could basically be used as sort of map. Map of human identity. Every person's life can be explored in some way by using the Ford method. At least that's what it was going on about. Because, you can ask how it work, but it'd be more impactful to ask, and again, fairly good question example, because now having it in front of me, it is something I would like to ask. That being, has your opinion about your career changed over the last year? It's something deeper than just how it worked. Because the meaning behind the facts keeps changing. Like I said, the facts are the facts, but the meanings behind them. A person is never finished updating. I like that they use the term updating. Sorry, I yawned. I hope that wasn't too loud. And part of the trick that I need to learn is about hearing those branches, those threads that you mentioned earlier. You only run out of things to say if you don't notice what else to ask about. Human minds, or human memory, is naturally associative. One idea naturally connects to others. Like a spider web of your mind. Some graphical visualization of all the threads could be formed. That's my computer science take on the portion. I think of, I gotta start making a visualization just to map out all the possibilities. If I ever run out, I can just go visit that and pick one of the ones that I haven't explored. Or whatever. And then back to listening, but in this case, active listening. And it has to deal with understanding. I think I mentioned that psychologists consider the term validation. And mostly work was exhausting today. I could say that. That sucks. Which is true. But I could also try a bit harder. Sounds like you've been carrying most of this responsibility lately, for example. And ultimately, just the fact that not all open-ended questions are equal. Some clearly aren't as open as others. Like, what do you do? It's not an amazing question. But you can continue on with what got you into that. Or even further, if you could go back, would you choose the same? So the deeper question is just I would believe, yeah, that they invite stories to come. And I mentioned I like stories. So to hear a story would be good, I would say. Stories are conversation fuel. It's one of the main points I think it probably made. Then this is why I need to talk about it. I need to remember better. Closeness often grows through what is self-expansion. Self-expansion being that people feel closer when they continue learning and growing through each other. People keep revealing new perspectives every day. That's what would allow things to not go stagnant. I will use that word. It often has to be less about telling me something I don't know, and rather help me understand how you're seeing the world these days. That's the kind of thing I gotta be asking. Mentions the biggest misconception in curiosity is, or well, the biggest misconception is thinking that curiosity is about wanting facts, I guess. And really, real curiosity is about wanting models. I love the computer sciencey terms, models. Or at least terms I can relate to computer sciencey things. And by models, kind of means, I guess, greater understanding. Instead of just saying, she likes biology, knowing the fact that she likes biology. And I do feel I could improve in this section of it the most, but I should be able to say, for example, why biology over astronomy. Sure. Astronomy was the example they gave, so whatever. Or being able to ask, or not ask, but recall. And if I can't recall, obviously ask, but when did it start? Or what parts interests her the most about it? There's a decent amount more to get to know on top of the already predefined facts. That's basically what I'm trying to say. A curious person, they don't stop at the answer. They should investigate. So for my own improvement, ideally, I should learn to be more curious in that way than I currently am. And I don't think that's impossible. I just have to more actively try. And then it talked about people generally trending towards two types of I'm not sure what the right word would be. Trends of mind. Like there people are information seeking or meaning seeking. And here is definitely where I would say I'm more typically information seeking, but I have to learn to become more meaning seeking. Basically, to mean that meaning seekers, they ask more why, how, what changed, what led to that. So that the trick might be replacing I know this person with what changed recently. Something I have to be able to do. A page and a half to go, guys. I made these notes too long. And back to listening. It's so back and forth. I did not do a good job at writing the notes out. Most people listen for a response. I need to learn to listen for understanding. It mentions basically 4 levels of listening. Number 1 being waiting, like where you are just waiting for your turn, which obviously isn't good because then you're not. It's one of the examples where it's clearly not even really listening. But when you go into the content, you actually hear the words, the emotion, you hear the feeling behind their words. A rough day might become like sounds like you're frustrated. You understand that much. And then the most important probably is identity, being able to hear what it means about them. And the same tough day might show you that they're upset about, I don't know, caring to do a good job at work. Research suggests, that's how I was there, but it was said that feeling understood a strong contribution to liking someone. So that's, it's something needs to be fixed if I can't pull it off. On the lovely topic about memory. The memory wasn't that big of a section. Basically just being able to recall. Last month you mentioned had been worried about your research presentation. How did it go? Demonstrates attention, care, and investment. I don't think that's too bad. Your brain stores information as associations. That's been mentioned before in this. So when somebody mentions one thing, I need to be able to retrieve the others. Mentally tracking those portions, like the current concerns, the current goals, current interests, current relationships, etc., to be able to utilize the memory aspect of that to the extent that it needs. And I talked about another subtopic. At the very least, I didn't think I do this. BIDS, BIDS, basically small attempts at connections. Like, look at this cloud, or I don't know. Just small, tiny things. I saw this today. How do you? Tiny invitations that, it claims long-term relationships are often built from thousands of tiny bids over a long time. However long that might be. And it wasn't a large topic, because then it goes into Big Five personality model, but I don't think it basically divides personalities into 5 different types. Openness for some that might be interested in more areas than like ideas, art, imagination. Consensuant, I don't know how to say that word. But you might be interested in structure and goals. Extroversion, where you might be interested in stimulation and social interactions. Agreeableness, where you want harmony in relationships. Or neuroticism, sensitive to stress and uncertainty. And the point is that different people enjoy different conversational diets. And in order to be better at conversation, gotta learn when to use what kind of fuel. Really love that fuel analogy. So as a general summary for those portions, is that curiosity asks what is happening inside this person. Listening gathers the data. Memory will store that data. Computer science. Okay. Personality psychology might help interpret the data, and relationships grow from this. Repeating those 4 over time. I asked, based on what I had read. What does it mean to be seen? For example, I feel like you understand something important about me. Might be a way to take it. Person feels seen when you recognize something that they didn't explicitly tell you. That part sucks for me because I personally really like when things are explicitly said to me. But I understand what it means. Like, there should be an understanding of the person within. Right? It mentions another kind of structure about facts, patterns, and identity. Facts, she likes dogs, and actually connect the rest of those with that same fact. The pattern, she tends to care for things. And that identity is just that her happiness maybe comes from nurturing and protecting others. I don't know. That's just the example that I got from the thing. But once it's too far off. And the skills in order to do a better job was divided in sort of 3 that I can, work on. There was becoming a collector, collecting info over time and paying attention. Things like repeated topics, complaints, joys, and fears. Ideally, I do really want to do that one. For skill 2, making short predictions. I feel like I do that pretty often, but start to ask yourself, how do I think they will react to this? Can't say today was a great example, but I genuinely always do that much. And thusly noticing emotional asymmetry, similar to one of the earlier points. Just what affects them more than most other people. Like what makes them clearly react. That shows something important. Something that affects them. And something to practice after spending some time talking to someone. Probably be a good idea for me to compile the results of the data. Basically be able to analyze what happened. What were the facts? Why did it matter to them? That being the meaning. And what did that suggest about who they are? That being their identity portion of it. To note. Generally, may or may not be true, but I focus on generally doing the right thing, wanting to fix problems, understanding what could be my next action, and preventing mistakes. But ultimately, these pull more towards what should I do instead of what is this person experiencing. It's a division between basically action mode how can I solve this, which I think is the mode I am most typically in. And then also experience mode. What is this like to you? For you? Oh, I got an example. This is just purely hypothetical, but you know. So what it is that happened? They talked about dogs for 20 minutes. Sure. Why did it matter? Because dogs are animals, brings them joy. Then what ends up being the identity of that information? I'll see that they seem to have a nurturing side and enjoy caring for things. Action mode can make you accidentally stop learning. I will admit that probably sounds like there might be some influence there. Yeah, like, that sounds like it could be accurate. Since experience mode asks different questions where none immediately tell you an answer. I can't say it's my ideal, but they ultimately help you understand better. So I'm going to try my best to be in experience mode rather than action mode. We'll see how that goes. That was, in fact, all the notes I took. This went for too long. I hope that this comes out well and that the point is reached. I need sleep. But if the last couple nights are any correlation, I'm not gonna be getting that sleep. That's all I have for today. But just at least my one attempt to get something to improve, to do exactly what is missing. It's okay. I'll end up having to take more notes tomorrow. Might probably be a different topic, but you know, gotta start somewhere.